The sun hung low over the endless stretch of Interstate 70, casting long shadows across the cracked asphalt as Jack pulled into the gas station for what felt like the 1,000th time. It was the same routine, day in and day out. Fill up the tank, grab a black coffee from the ancient machine inside, and get back on the road before the evening traffic clotted up around Kansas City. But today, as he stepped out of his faded blue Ford pickup, something caught his eye in the rearview mirror, a flicker of movement behind the pumps, like a shadow that didn't quite belong to the dying light. He blinked, and it was gone. Just the wind rustling the overgrown weeds along the fence, he told himself, nothing more. Jack had been making this stop every weekday morning for the past 5 years, ever since he took the job at the auto parts warehouse on the outskirts of town. Eldridge was the kind of small Midwestern place where everyone knew your truck by sight, and the gas station, called Miller's Shell, though Old Man Miller had sold it to a chain years ago, was its beating heart. It sat at the edge of a quiet suburb, flanked by flat fields that stretched out like a rumpled blanket under the big Kansas sky. The pumps were rusted at the edges. The convenience store's neon sign buzzed faintly even in daylight, and inside, the air always smelled of stale donuts and motor oil. It was comforting in its predictability. Jack liked that. At 42, with a divorce under his belt and a stack of bills that never seemed to shrink, routine was the one thing he could count on. He swiped his card at the pump, the machine beeping its familiar approval, and unscrewed the gas cap. The nozzle clicked into place, and as the fuel hissed steadily into the tank, Jack let his mind wander to the day ahead. Inventory counts, restocking shelves, maybe a quick lunch at the diner across the street if the boss wasn't riding him too hard. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from his buddy Mike at the warehouse, something about a delayed shipment. He glanced at it absently, then looked up toward the store. That's when he noticed the attendant behind the counter, or rather, the lack of one. Usually it was Tina, the middle-aged woman with the sharp laugh and the habit of recommending lottery tickets like they were sure things. But today, the register stood empty, the fluorescent lights humming over rows of candy bars and energy drinks. Odd, but not unheard of. Mornings could be slow. Jack finished pumping and headed inside, the bell above the door jingling softly. The coffee machine was right where it always was, its pot half full and lukewarm. He poured a cup, black, no sugar, and set a couple of bucks on the counter. "Tina?" he called out, his voice echoing a bit in the quiet space. No answer. He waited a moment, stirring in a splash of creamer from the tiny tubs by the register, then shrugged and turned to leave. As he did, his eyes snagged on something out of place, a single keychain dangling from the hook by the door, one he'd never seen before. It was a small plastic fob shaped like a vintage car, the kind you might win at a county fair, with a key still attached. Not a spare for the store, but something personal, maybe for a house or a lockbox. It swung gently, as if someone had just brushed past it. He paused, hand on the door. The station felt emptier than usual, the hum of the coolers louder, the faint tick of a clock on the wall marking seconds that seemed to drag. Outside, his truck idled at the pump, exhaust curling lazily in the cool air. Jack stepped back out, coffee in hand, and climbed into the cab. The engine rumbled to life and he pulled away, the station shrinking in his mirrors. But as he merged onto the highway, that keychain nagged at him. Why leave it there? Tina was forgetful sometimes, sure, but not like that. He shook it off, turning up the radio to catch the morning traffic report. Just another day. By the time Jack clocked in at the warehouse, the unease had faded into the background hum of fluorescent lights and forklift beeps. The place was a sprawling concrete box on the industrial edge of town, filled with the scent of rubber and grease. Mike clapped him on the shoulder as he hung up his jacket. "Rough drive? You look like you saw a ghost." "Nah, just the usual," Jack replied, forcing a grin. "Coffee was cold, that's all." They dove into the work, unloading crates, checking manifests, and the rhythm pulled him in, steady and unyielding. Lunch came and went at the diner, where the waitress knew his order by heart. Turkey club, no mayo, with a side of fries. The conversation stayed light, talk of the Royals' slim chances this season and the latest storm warnings rolling in from the west. Normal, grounding. But on the drive home that evening, the route reversed. Jack found himself pulling into Miller's Shell again. It wasn't just habit. His tank was still half full from the morning, but something drew him back. The sun was dipping lower now, painting the sky in bruised purples and oranges. The pumps were lit up, casting pools of yellow light on the pavement. Tina was there this time, wiping down the counter with a rag, her face lighting up as he entered. "Jack, you're early today," she said, her voice carrying that familiar twang. "Usual?" "Yeah, and whatever that keychain is by the door. Yours?" She frowned, glancing over. "Keychain? Ain't mine. Haven't seen it before." She rang him up for the coffee, which was hot this time, steam rising in lazy curls. Jack nodded, paid, and left. But as he sipped the brew on the way home, the questions lingered. Whose was it? And why did the station feel off? Like the air inside held its breath just a little too long. That night, in his modest ranch-style house on the quiet cul-de-sac, curtains drawn against the neighbor's porch light, Jack couldn't shake it. He sat at the kitchen table, the wooden surface scarred from years of solitary meals, and stared at the steam from his reheated leftovers. The house was silent, save for the distant hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of settling beams. He'd bought the place after the divorce, drawn to its unpretentious layout. A small living room with a sagging couch, a bedroom upstairs that overlooked the backyard fence, and a basement he rarely ventured into. Stacked with boxes from his old life. It was safe, predictable, like the gas station. As he cleared the dishes, a faint sound drifted from the front window, a soft scrape, like gravel under tires. He peered out, but the street was empty, sodium lamps flickering on one by one. Just the wind, he thought, locking the door a second time. Upstairs he lay in bed, the sheets cool against his skin, and listened to the house breathe. Sleep came slow, interrupted by dreams of endless roads and shadows that mimicked his every turn. The next morning the alarm buzzed at 5:45, same as always. Jack showered, dressed in his work khakis, and headed out to the truck. The driveway felt colder than usual, frost edging the windshield. He scraped it off, climbed in, and started the engine. The route to the highway was the same, past the sleepy houses with their American flags fluttering limply, through the stoplight at Main Street, and onto the open road. Miller's Shell appeared right on cue, its sign glowing faintly in the pre-dawn grey. He pulled up to the pump, the routine kicking in like muscle memory. But as he stepped out, coffee money in pocket, he froze. There, on the ground by the nozzle, glinted something small and metallic. He bent down, heart picking up a notch. It was the keychain from yesterday, the plastic car fob, now lying loose on the concrete, as if it had fallen from someone's hand. No one around. No cars in the lot, just the quiet whir of the station waking up. Jack picked it up, the key cold in his palm. He turned toward the store, the bell jingling as he pushed inside. Tina wasn't there yet, the counter was bare, the coffee pot empty, and on the hook by the door, nothing. Empty. Jack turned the keychain over in his hand, the plastic fob catching the harsh fluorescent light inside the store. It felt heavier than it should, the metal key attached to it worn smooth at the edges, like something carried for years. He set it on the counter, expecting the quiet to break with Tina's arrival any second, her old sedan usually crunching into the lot by now. But the minutes ticked by on the wall clock, the second hand sweeping in lazy arcs. Outside, through the plate glass window, the pump stood sentinel in the dim morning haze, no other vehicles in sight. The highway beyond was a distant ribbon of grey, empty at this hour. He poured himself a cup from the machine anyway, even though the pot was stone cold, the coffee tasting like bitter grounds left too long. No point in waiting. Work wouldn't wait for him. As he sipped, his eyes drifted back to the keychain. Who dropped something like that? And how did it end up on the ground by his pump, of all places? He pocketed it on impulse, figuring he'd ask Tina later. The bell jingled behind him as he left, the door swinging shut with a soft thud that echoed in the stillness. The drive to the warehouse blurred into familiarity, past the cornfields starting to yellow at the edges, the billboards advertising truck stops and farm equipment sales. Jack's mind replayed the moment, though, the keychain, a small weight in his jeans. Coincidence, probably. Someone else stopped by after him yesterday, knocked it loose, but the hook had been empty this morning, and Tina swore it wasn't hers. He gripped the steering wheel a little tighter, the leather creaking under his fingers. At the warehouse, the day unfolded in its usual grind. Mike was already there, sorting parts under the high ceilings that smelled of dust and metal. "You look like you didn't sleep a wink," he said, eyeing Jack as he signed in. "Everything all right?" "Yeah, just weird morning at the Shell," Jack muttered, hanging up his jacket. He didn't elaborate, diving into the crates instead, counting spark plugs, logging serial numbers. The work was mindless enough to soothe, the clatter of tools and low hum of conversations filling the space. But every so often, his hand brushed the keychain in his pocket, a reminder that pulled his thoughts back to the station. By mid-morning break, he couldn't ignore it. He stepped outside to the loading dock, the air crisp with the scent of impending rain, and fished it out. The fob was a '57 Chevy, faded red, the kind his dad used to tinker with in the garage back in Ohio. Nostalgic almost. But no name, no engraving, just the key, anonymous and cold. He snapped a quick photo on his phone, thinking maybe he'd post it in the local Lost and Found group on Facebook later. Eldridge had one of those community pages. Folks posting about missing dogs or garage sale finds. Harmless. As he pocketed it again, a truck rumbled past on the access road, its headlights cutting through the overcast sky. For a split second, Jack swore he saw a face in the passenger window, turned his way. But the vehicle didn't slow, just merged onto the main drag toward town. He shook his head, blaming the lack of caffeine. Lunch at the diner was a brief escape. The place was a classic, red vinyl booths, checkered floors, the sizzle of burgers on the grill. Sally, the waitress who'd been pouring coffee there since Jack was a kid, visiting his grandparents, slid his plate over without a word. "Heard there's some odd goings-on at Miller's," she said casually, wiping her hands on her apron. "Tina called in sick today. First time in years." Jack paused, fork halfway to his mouth. "Sick? She seemed fine yesterday." Sally shrugged, her earrings catching the light. "Who knows? Small town, word travels. Anyway, enjoy the fries. They're fresh." He ate in silence after that, the food turning tasteless. Tina sick? It explained the empty counter, but not the keychain, or the way the station had felt, watched, like eyes on his back as he drove away. Paranoia, he told himself. The divorce had left him jumpy for months, second-guessing shadows. This was nothing. By the time he paid and headed back to work, the clouds had thickened, a fine mist starting to speckle the windshield. The afternoon dragged, rain pattering against the warehouse roof like impatient fingers. Jack finished his shift early, citing a headache, truth enough. On the way home, he detoured past Miller's Shell without really deciding to. The lot was busier now, a couple of semis idling at the diesel pumps, their drivers stretching legs under the awning. Inside, a temp stood behind the counter, a young guy with a name tag reading, "Carlos, restocking chips with mechanical efficiency. No Tina." "Seen this before?" Jack asked, holding up the keychain. Carlos glanced over, barely pausing. "Nah, man. Looks old. Maybe lost and found." He nodded to a plastic bin by the register, half full of sunglasses and water bottles. Jack dropped it in, the fob clinking against the others. "Tina around?" "Called out. Family stuff, I think." Carlos rang up a pack of gum for a customer. Conversation over. Outside, the rain had picked up, drumming on the truck's roof as Jack sat there a moment longer. The station's lights reflected in the wet pavement, blurring into halos. He thought about driving inside, waiting out the downpour with another coffee. But the idea soured. Instead, he pulled away, the wipers slapping rhythmically. Home was a refuge, or so he hoped. The ranch house sat at the end of Elm Street, its brick facade blending with the row of similar places. Neat lawns, basketball hoops in driveways, the occasional minivan. Jack parked in the garage, the door rumbling shut behind him like a seal. Inside, the air was still, carrying the faint scent of last night's takeout. He flicked on the kitchen light, the bulb buzzing softly, and heated up soup. The radio murmured weather updates, more rain overnight, flash flood watch for the lowlands. As he ate at the table, staring out at the darkening backyard, the unease crept back. The keychain was out of his hands now, but its image lingered, that little car fob swinging in his mind. He checked his phone. No notifications from the lost and found post. He hadn't made it yet. Instead, he scrolled through emails, bills, stacking up like unspoken worries. A noise from the living room pulled him up short, a soft thump, like a book falling. He investigated, finding nothing amiss. The couch pillows undisturbed, the TV remote on the coffee table where he'd left it. Upstairs, the bedroom felt smaller than usual, the rain tapping insistently at the window. Jack lay down early, the mattress dipping under his weight, but sleep evaded him. His thoughts circled the station, the empty hook, the key on the ground. Tina's absence. Was someone playing a joke? Or worse, watching? The idea was ridiculous, born of fatigue, but it rooted there, growing in the quiet. Outside, a car passed slowly down the street, headlights sweeping across the curtains. He sat up, peering through a slit in the fabric. Just a neighbor, probably heading to the late shift at the mill. The taillights faded, and the night settled deeper. By morning, the rain had cleared, leaving puddles that mirrored the pale sky. Jack's alarm jarred him awake, body heavy from broken rest. He dressed quickly, the routine a lifeline. The drive to the highway felt longer, every shadow along the roadside drawing his eye. Miller's Shell loomed ahead, unchanged on the surface, pumps humming, sign flickering. He pulled in, heart thudding a beat too fast. Stepping out, he scanned the ground by the nozzle. Nothing. Clean concrete. Inside, Tina was back, her face pale but smiling as she poured his coffee. "Missed you yesterday, Jack." Bug must have been going around. He nodded, searching her expression. "The keychain? Find an owner?" She tilted her head, puzzled. "What keychain?" "Oh, wait. The one Carlos mentioned. Still in the bin. No one's claimed it." Jack took the cup, steam warming his fingers. As he turned to leave, his gaze snagged on the hook by the door. Empty, as always. But in the reflection of the glass cooler behind him, for just a fraction of a second, he saw it. The red fob dangling there. He spun around. Nothing. Just the hum of the store and Tina counting change for another customer. He drove away faster than usual, the coffee sloshing in its holder. The warehouse waited, but so did the questions, multiplying like echoes in an empty room. The days blurred into a monotonous rhythm after that, each one pulling Jack deeper into the quiet unraveling of his routine. He woke to the same alarm, the digital glow, cutting through the dimness of his bedroom like a persistent reminder. The house on Elm Street felt heavier now, its walls absorbing the sounds of the neighborhood waking up, kids' laughter filtering from across the street, the distant rumble of a lawnmower starting early. He showered under water that ran too hot, steam fogging the mirror until his reflection vanished, and dressed in the same khakis and flannel shirt, the fabric familiar against his skin. Breakfast was black coffee from the percolator, sipped standing at the counter while staring out at the backyard, where dew clung to the chain-link fence like tiny accusations. The drive to Miller's Shell had become something he dreaded and anticipated in equal measure. The highway unfurled ahead, a gray vein through the Kansas flatlands, dotted with billboards for seed companies and Jesus billboards that promised salvation in bold letters. Jack's hands gripped the wheel at 10 and 2, his eyes flicking to the mirrors more often than necessary, scanning for tails that never appeared. No one followed him. It was just the open road, empty save for the occasional semi-hauling freight toward the horizon. But the station itself loomed larger in his mind, its faded red awning a beacon of unease. That Monday morning the sky was overcast, a uniform slate that pressed down on the fields. Jack pulled into the lot, the gravel crunching under his tires in a way that set his teeth on edge. The pumps were quiet, no other cars, just the faint buzz of the neon sign fighting the daylight. He stepped out, breath visible in the chill, and approached the nozzle with deliberate slowness. The ground was dry now, no puddles from the weekend rain, but he couldn't help crouching to check, half expecting the keychain to reappear like some spectral joke. Nothing. Just oil stains and cigarette butts scattered like forgotten thoughts. Inside, the bell's jingle felt sharper, slicing through the stale air. Tina was there, restocking the cigarette display behind the counter, her movements efficient but somehow mechanical. She glanced up, her smile automatic. "Morning, Jack. The usual?" "Yeah," he said, voice steady despite the knot in his chest. He poured the coffee, the machine gurgling its protest, and slid the money across. His eyes darted to the hook by the door. Empty, as it should be. But then, as he turned back, the reflection in the cooler door caught him again. That red fob, swinging gently, the key glinting. He whipped around, coffee sloshing over the lid. The hook was bare. Tina hadn't moved. She was counting singles from the register drawer. "You all right?" she asked, brow furrowing just a touch. "Looked like you could use a day off." Jack forced a nod, mumbling something about a long weekend. He left quickly, the door thudding shut behind him. In the truck, he sat for a full minute, engine idling, staring at the station through the windshield. The building seemed to lean slightly in the grey light, its windows dark except for the fluorescent glow inside. No one else entered or left. He drove away, but the image burned. The fob. There, and not there, like a glitch in reality he couldn't reset. Work at the warehouse offered no escape. The concrete floors echoed with the squeak of pallet jacks and the low murmur of radios tuned to country stations. Mike noticed his distraction during inventory, clapping a hand on his shoulder as they hauled a pallet of batteries. "Earth to Jack, you zoning out on me. That's the third time you've counted that row twice." "Sorry, man, just tired," Jack replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. The air was thick with the tang of exhaust from the forklifts, a smell that usually grounded him, but today it clung like dampness. He kept the keychain incident to himself, no point in sounding unhinged. Instead, he focused on the manifests, the neat columns of numbers, a fragile order. By lunch, though, the diner's familiarity soured. Sally's chatter about the upcoming county fair felt distant, her plate of meatloaf arriving with a clatter that made him jump. He ate mechanically, pushing peas around the edge, his mind replaying the reflection. Optical illusion? Stress? The divorce counselor had warned him about hypervigilance, how the mind fills voids with phantoms after loss. Afternoon brought a delivery snag. A truck late from St. Louis, stranding them in the shipping bay. Jack volunteered to wait, sitting on a milk crate under the open bay door, watching rain clouds gather in the west. The access road stretched toward town, flanked by chain-link and weeds. A vehicle approached slowly, an older sedan. Its paint chipped and faded, It slowed as it passed the warehouse entrance, the driver's side window down, just enough for Jack to glimpse the occupant. A man, mid-50s maybe, with a lined face and eyes fixed straight ahead. No wave, no glance his way. But something about the posture nagged, the way the head tilted slightly, as if listening. The car accelerated, vanishing around the bend. He shook it off, attributing it to the weather's gloom. But when the delivery finally arrived, chaos of unloading boxes under the first drops of rain, Jack's thoughts circled back. That evening on the drive home, he avoided the station altogether, taking the back roads through the suburbs, neat rows of split-level homes with minivans in driveways, porch lights flickering on early. Elm Street welcomed him with its quiet assurance, the house a squat silhouette against the twilight. He grilled a burger on the back patio, the sizzle and smoke a small ritual. But even there, isolation crept in. The fence separated him from the neighbors' yards, but the emptiness amplified every rustle of leaves. Night fell heavy, the sky inking over without stars. Jack retreated to the living room, flipping through channels, news recaps of Midwest floods, a rerun of an old cop show where shadows hid secrets. He dozed in the recliner, waking to a creak from upstairs, the house settling like an old bone. Padding to the kitchen for water, he paused at the window. The street lamp cast long pools of light, but a shape moved at the cul-de-sac's edge. A figure, brief and indistinct, crossing from shadow to shadow before vanishing behind the hedges. Neighbor walking the dog. Too late for that. He double-checked the locks, the deadbolt clicking solidly, and climbed the stairs. Sleep was fitful, dreams weaving the station into his past. The keychain morphing into his ex-wife's wedding ring, lost years ago in a move. Tina's face dissolving into his father's. Stern and silent from the garage in Ohio, he woke sweating, the clock reading 3:17 a.m., the rain now a steady patter. Downstairs the fridge hummed louder than usual, or maybe it was just the quiet amplifying it. He didn't turn on lights, navigating by memory to the back door. Peering out, the yard was a black void, puddles reflecting the faint glow from the neighbor's security light. Nothing stirred. Morning came too soon, the alarm a harsh buzz. Jack skipped the shower, splashing water on his face instead, stubble rough under his fingers. The routine propelled him forward, the drive, the highway's hum, but Miller's shell pulled like a magnet. He stopped anyway, unable to resist, the lot slick with overnight rain. The pumps gleamed wetly, and as he fueled up, a car pulled in across from him, that same faded sedan from yesterday, idling at the far pump. The driver didn't emerge, just sat there, engine running, windows tinted enough to obscure details. Inside, Tina poured his coffee without comment, her eyes distant as she wiped the counter. "Busy night?" Jack asked, testing the waters. She shrugged. "Same as always. You look beat, hun." He nodded, glancing at the hook. Empty. But in the cooler's reflection, there it was again, the fob swaying. This time he didn't turn. He paid and left, heart pounding, sliding into the truck just as the sedan's door opened. The driver stepped out, average height, wearing a worn jacket, face half hidden by a cap. He moved to the pump with deliberate slowness, never looking Jack's way. But as Jack pulled out, merging onto the highway, he caught a glimpse in the mirror, the man holding something small, red, dangling from his fingers. The warehouse blurred by in a haze of tasks, but the image stuck, festering. Mike asked twice if he needed to go home early, concern etching his features. Jack waved it off, pushing through till quitting time. On the way back, he circled the block near the station once, twice, but the sedan was gone. Home offered no solace. The mail slot held a stack of bills, the answering machine blinking with a message from his sister in Ohio. Casual check-in, voice warm but distant. He erased it without replying. Dinner was skipped, replaced by pacing the kitchen, the linoleum cool under his socks. The rain had stopped, leaving a dripping quiet. A knock at the door jolted him, sharp, unexpected. Through the peephole, empty porch, no one. He opened it anyway, scanning the street. Taillights fading at the intersection, but no figure. Just the wind, perhaps, rattling the flagpole down the way. That night, lying in bed, the ceiling fan whirred softly overhead. Jack's mind raced, piecing fragments, the keychain, the reflections, the sedan, the knock. Not coincidence. Someone's game, subtle and insistent, eroding the edges of his world. He closed his eyes, willing sleep, but the house whispered back. Creaks in the floorboards, a faint scrape at the window. Isolation wrapped tighter. The small town no longer a haven but a stage, and he unwittingly the unwitting player. The following Tuesday dawned with a deceptive clarity. The sun breaking through the clouds like a reluctant promise. Jack's eyes snapped open before the alarm. The bedroom bathed in pale light filtering through the half-drawn blinds. He lay there a moment, listening to the house's subtle symphony. The drip of the faucet downstairs, the faint groan of pipes cooling from the night. No dreams this time. Just a hollow wakefulness that left him staring at the water stain on the ceiling, shaped vaguely like a question mark. He rose without ceremony, the floorboards creaking under his weight, and moved through the morning motions on autopilot, brushing teeth, pulling on yesterday's shirt, the collar stiff with dried sweat. The kitchen clock ticked steadily as he gulped down coffee from a mug chipped at the rim, its bitterness a familiar anchor. The drive felt interminable, the suburbs giving way to the open highway in a procession of identical ranch houses and faded campaign signs from last fall's election. Jack's gaze flicked to the rear view more than usual, the empty road behind him a canvas for imagined pursuits. No sedan today, at least not yet. Miller's Shell appeared on the horizon, its outline sharp against the flat expanse, the red awning flapping gently in a breeze that carried the scent of turned earth from the fields. He pulled in with a deliberate crunch of gravel, parking closer to the store this time, as if proximity might dispel the shadows clinging to the edges of his perception. The pump nozzle clicked into place, fuel hissing steadily, but Jack's attention was elsewhere, scanning the lot, the weed-choked fence line, the distant silhouette of the diner across the road. No other vehicles. The air held a crisp edge, promising autumn's approach, but it did little to cut through the thickening fog in his mind. He finished quickly, pocketing the receipt, and pushed through the store door. The bell's jingle was softer today, muffled somehow, or perhaps it was just the pounding in his ears. Tina stood behind the counter, arranging lottery tickets with her back to him, her posture slumped in a way that spoke of exhaustion. She turned as he approached, her smile thin and fleeting. "Jack, early bird today." "Couldn't sleep," he admitted. Pouring coffee that steamed invitingly, the aroma cutting through the stale undercurrent of the place. He slid the money over, his fingers lingering on the counter. "That keychain, still in the bin." She paused, ticket in hand, her eyes meeting his for the first time that morning. There was something off in her gaze, a flicker of recognition that bordered on wariness. "Yeah, no one's come for it." "Why? You know something?" He shook his head, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he glanced toward the hook by the door. Empty, unremarkable. The cooler hummed behind him, its glass surface fogged slightly at the edges. He turned away deliberately, refusing the pull of the reflection, and headed for the exit. But halfway there, a sound stopped him. A soft clink, like metal on plastic, from the lost and found bin. He froze, hand on the door. Tina hadn't moved. She was back to her tickets, humming a tune under her breath. Something old, from the radio hits of the 80s. Jack stepped closer to the bin, peering in. There it was, nestled among the odds and ends, the red fob, the key looped through it, glinting dully under the fluorescence. He reached in, lifting it out. The weight familiar now, almost intimate, As his thumb brushed the plastic, a chill traced his spine, not from cold, but from the sudden certainty that this object was no accident. It had chosen him, appearing in his path, vanishing and re-emerging like a message he couldn't decode. He pocketed it again, the metal pressing against his thigh like a secret, and left without another word. The door swung shut, the bells echo chasing him to the truck. The warehouse shift passed in fragments, the clatter of crates and banter of co-workers, a distant roar. Mike pulled him aside during break, leaning against a stack of tires in the break room, the vending machine's glow casting harsh shadows on his face. "All right, spill it. You've been off since that keychain thing. What's eating you?" Jack hesitated, the styrofoam cup of lukewarm vending coffee burning his palm. He pulled the fob from his pocket, holding it up between them. "This keeps showing up. Reflections, the ground, now back in the bin. And that car. The sedan. I saw the driver with it yesterday." Mike took it, turning it over with a frown. "Looks like junk from a flea market. Probably some kid's prank. Or Tina messing with you. Small-town boredom, you know. Forget it, man. You're letting it get under your skin." But as Mike handed it back, Jack saw it differently. Not junk, but a tether. To what? He couldn't say. The afternoon wore on, rain spitting against the loading dock, turning the access road to mud. When the sedan appeared again, creeping past the warehouse at a crawl, Jack didn't wait. He grabbed his jacket and followed on foot, boots squelching through puddles, the chain-link fence rattling as he cut through the side lot. The car turned onto the county road, taillights winking like eyes in the gloom. He lost it around a bend, breathless and soaked, the realization hitting him like the downpour. This wasn't random. Someone was mirroring his routine, shadowing his stops, planting these echoes to unravel him piece by piece. By evening, the rain had eased to a drizzle, the streets of Eldridge glistening under street lamps. Jack drove the back way home, avoiding the highway, but the pull was irresistible. He circled past Miller's Shell once, the lot emptying out, lights buzzing in the twilight. No sedan. At the house, he entered through the garage. The doors rumble, sealing him in with his thoughts. The kitchen felt claustrophobic, the counters cluttered with unopened mail and a half-eaten apple from days ago. He set the keychain on the table, watching it catch the overhead light. The red fob, a tiny sentinel. Upstairs, in the dim bedroom, he sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress springs sighing. The neighborhood sounds filtered in, a dog's bark, the whoosh of a car on wet pavement, but they only amplified the silence within. He closed his eyes, and in the darkness behind his lids, the pieces aligned. The fob wasn't lost, it was left, for him. A signal from someone who knew his every move, who had watched from the shadows of his routine, turning the predictable into a cage. Not malice, perhaps, but an intimate intrusion, a psychological noose tightening without a touch. Who? An old acquaintance from the divorce? A co-worker nursing a grudge? Or something simpler, a neighbor's quiet obsession born of the town's stifling sameness? The understanding settled over him, not with shock, but a profound, echoing weariness. He was no longer just stopping at the station. The station, and whatever haunted its edges, had stopped at him. Sleep came eventually, shallow and dreamless. The keychain downstairs, a silent witness. Morning broke with fog blanketing the town, muting the world to grays. Jack dressed, the routine intact, but altered. He pocketed the fob one last time, its presence a reluctant companion. The drive to Miller's Shell unfolded in silence, radio off. The highway, a blurred ribbon. He pulled in, the lot shrouded, and stepped out into the mist. The store door beckoned, bell waiting to chime. But as he reached for it, a reflection in the pump's chrome surface caught his eye, not the fob, but his own face, staring back with eyes that mirrored a stranger's quiet desperation. He turned away, climbed into the truck, and drove on without entering. The station receded in the mirror, just another fixture in the landscape, but the weight in his pocket remained, a subtle promise that the echoes would continue, unseen and unending, long after the fog lifted.